Welcome back. We have discovered a trap doors in the wizard's study. Where could that lead? Down here. You're on a flight of steps. You're on a flight of steep underground stone steps. They curve downward towards a dim light. The open trapdoor is above you. Another thing, be careful to close the trapdoor and move the book back before the wizard comes back, because he will kill you if you don't. Speaking of things that kill you, cat is normally a nuisance but not a problem. But on this particular steps, you will trip over him and fall to your death. Uh-oh, that darn cat really did it to you this time. Tripping over the cat, you fall to your death. It's not even that high. I mean, I could believe that you would break something from that height, but fall to your death? Really? I guess. So, be careful of the cat in the study. Also, how did he get here? This cat is capable of teleporting, apparently. Now this looks very interesting. You look in awe around this torchlit underground room. It appears to be a laboratory. A wizard's laboratory. Why is wizards in quotation mark? Against the earthen walls there are rows of shelves holding numerous jars which contain strange, unknown ingredients. The shelves also hold skeletons of small animals and birds, some human skulls and bones, and other odd instruments, whose use you do not know. Against the earth wall is a massive oak table with a spacious worktop. The narrow stone steps lead up to the wizard's study. Now this is interesting. You can actually also fall from lower down, which does not kill you. But it does turn you into the girl from The Exorcist. The burning torches throw flickering shadows across the walls, making the room even more ominous. And there is a big book lying here, an old tome of spells, perhaps. Covered with gold trimmings, the old book's leather cover is cracked and worn, its pages yellow and brittle. The title, however, is clear: The Sorcery of Old. You eagerly thumb through page after page of what you assume to be magic formulas. The ink of the old handwriting is faint and barely readable. Most of the formulas are indecipherable, but a few are in a language you know. You treat the old book with great care, as you can tell it contains recipes for some very old and powerful magic spells. Your hands shake as you realize this book could be the key to your escape from the evil Manannan. Indeed. Unfortunately, you can't actually read it. We'll give the same message as before. For that, we need to turn to the manual, which actually tells you the spells, which spells there are, what ingredients you need for them, and how to do those spells. So what spells can we brew? Well, let's turn to the manual then. The first spell is understanding the language of creatures. If you do this spell, you will be able to understand the speech of animals, birds and fish and other creatures, basically. And in order to do that spell, we need one small feather from a bird, one tuft of fur from an animal, one dried reptile skin, one rounded spoonful of powdered fish bone, one thimbleful of dew. The second spell is flying like an eagle or a fly, which allows you to turn into either an eagle or a fly. We will require one tail feather for any eagle, one pair of fly wings, which we already have, one pinch of saffron, rose petal essence, which we also already have, and one magic wand, which you need for all the spells. The third spell is Teleportation at random. Not as useful as it sounds, because, well, it is actually random. You cannot control where you're going. However, what you need for it is 1 spoonful of salt grains, 1 sprig of dried mistletoe, 1 smooth rounded stone of unusual color, and 1 magic wand. The fourth spell is causing a deep sleep. Well, that's self-explanatory, I guess. Which requires 3 dried acorns, 1 cup of nightshade juice, 1 magic wand, and 1 empty pouch. The fifth spell is transforming another into a cat. 1/2 cup mandrake root powder, 1 small ball of cat hair, and 2 spoonfuls of fish oil are needed for this spell. The description says it turns someone into a cat forever, so don't try it on yourself. However, this might be something that we could use against a wizard, I guess. The sixth spell is Brewing a Storm, for which we will need 1 cup of ocean water, 1 spoonful of mud, 1 pinch of toadstool powder, 1 magic wand, and 1 empty jar. And with the powder that creates, we will be able to conjure a storm anywhere we want. The last spell is Becoming Invisible, again pretty self-explanatory, and it requires 1 jar of lard, 1 cactus, 1 spoonful of cactus juice, and 2 drops of toad spittle in addition to the magic wand. So we now have our basic goal for this portion of the game is to gather all these ingredients so we can prepare these spells. However, not all of the spells are actually required. You can finish the game without preparing all of the spells. As far as I know, understanding the language of creatures is completely optional. Teleportation at random is not necessary, but there is one specific thing that you must do, or rather not do, if you want to get by without that spell. I think causing a deep sleep is also optional. The others are all mandatory. However, of course, if you want to get the maximum points, you must make all of the spells, which we will therefore do. So we have to go and find ingredients. Well, it looks like a good place to find some of this stuff might be these shelves. You curiously gaze at the strange jar of ingredients, the animal and human bones, and other odd implements which line the rows of shelves. You see jars of ingredients resting on labeled shelves. Shelves bearing such ghastly names as powdered fishbone, nightshade juice, mandrake root powder, saffron, toad spittle, and toadstool powder. Okay, that is all stuff that we need for the spells. So, let's get the fishbone. You remove the jar labeled powdered fishbone from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you. That is a spell that we need an ingredient that we will need for sorry. Trying to find which spell we needed this for in my notes. Okay, for understanding the language of creatures. Makes sense, I guess. What else was there? Nightshade juice. Oh, you remove the jar of nightshade juice from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you. Nightshade juice is needed for causing a deep sleep. Again, makes sense, I guess, from the name. Mandrake root powder. You remove the jar labeled mandrake root powder from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you. Which is needed for the transforming another into a cat spell. Then we have saffron, It's a very commonplace thing, I guess, compared to some of the other stuff that's there. You remove the jar labeled Saffron from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you. This is needed for the Fly Like an Eagle or Fly spell. And you might notice that we now actually have all the ingredients for that spell, except for the tail feather of an eagle. Except you don't need the tail feather of an eagle to actually do the spell. Just you need it later if you want to turn into an eagle. So we can actually already perform the spell without having the feather. Yeah, sorry, my memory is not good enough to remember everything that was on the shelves here. Toad spittle and toadstool powder. You remove the jar labeled Toad Spittle from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you. And that is needed for becoming invisible. And finally, the toadstool powder. You remove the jar of toadstool powder from the laboratory shelf and carry it with you, which is needed for the Brewing a Storm spell. Very good. We've gotten some ingredients already. What's this? Another table, I guess. Wizard's desk is curiously empty. You have no further interest in it. Okay. How about these shelves? I think they actually give the same description as the other one, yeah. So you can stand here or at the other shelves to get all the stuff you need for the spells. Well, now that we have what we need for one of the spells, let's try and do some magic. For which I will briefly need to switch back to the manual. So I can actually see the instructions, because although I have a list of ingredients on standby so I remember what I need to get, I do need to refer to the manual to actually perform the spell. The spell we can perform, the only one that we have all the ingredients for, is Flying Like an Eagle or a Fly. Now, in order to perform any spell, you must first turn to the page of the spell book that that spell is described on. And according to the manual, this page is described on this spell is described on page 4. So, so I'm going to save. And actually, we're going to do magic in the next video. I'm cruel, aren't I?